Hey everybody, welcome back to Ampersand Unique Gifts and Home Decor, and if this is your first time, then I'm glad you're here too, and hopefully you'll subscribe and consider sticking around and catching future videos. Make sure to hit that notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. So it doesn't get much more real than this. I am out here first thing in the morning. This is yesterday's hair, and I am ready to work on projects. So I've got a table over here. It's actually an old sewing machine cabinet that we're going to finish. I've got a bookshelf that I'm working on that is just going into my booth for display. It's not for sale, but hey, why not make it fun? It came out of a shop. It was built strictly for use and not appearance, but I'm going to try to give it a little bit of a refresh so that it will blend in well with the items in my booth. And then I have outside a drop leaf table that I bought at the last auction that I want to get fixed up again. Its purpose is just going to be to hold things in my booth. I have more smalls than I do places to put them, so I have lots of wall space and nowhere to set anything. So these items are going into the booth to try to help give some place to display. And hey, you know what? If they sell, that's a bonus too. If they don't, they'll continue to serve their purpose. So anyway, stick around. Let's get some of this stuff done, and I'll see you on the flip side. So let's get these projects wrapped up. So this bookshelf I painted, and then I used construction adhesive and put a paintable wallpaper in a beadboard theme on top. And I'm just using my sander to kind of cut the edges off. I left it a little big all the way around so that I could cut the edges to kind of make it look a little more part of the piece. And of course it's been in the shop a while, so I am cleaning it off really well before I move on to the next step. There were a few places where it was kind of a little thin looking, so I went ahead and touched up some spots with the color Eden in the Rust-Oleum paint. But here's the part I'm most excited about. I am going to stain that paintable beadboard in Dark Walnut. I did do just a very thin, like a dusting of spray paint over the top of that, because I was hoping to give it a little bit something better to stick to, because I didn't know how well it was going to stain. I know it's paintable, but I didn't know if you could actually stain it. And I was really pleased with how it turned out. I like how it's dark down in those grooves. While that is drying, I'm going to go ahead and add some antique wax to the shelving unit itself. It's about 1/3 wax, 2/3 water. This is just actually tap water that I keep out in the shop. And I am going to put it all over the entire shelf, just to kind of tone down, if you will. Again, giving it kind of that antiqued look. And you can see here where it gave it that darker, and there's actually, you can see on the left where it's done and on the right where it's not. So it's not that different. It just kind of gives it a little bit older look to it. And this is, again, this shelf came out of a shop. It has, it's made out of old scrap wood. They had a hole in there, apparently. They had a cord coming through, and then the board on the side actually is just, it's a knot out in the board. But it's just perfect for what I'm going to do with it. So now I'm putting a second coat on, and I guess because of that first coat, it really had something to stick to. So that second coat went on much darker and looked really nice. I was pleased. I will probably try to do this again sometime. Once it dried really well, I went ahead and put just a matte clear coat on top. I did about 3 coats of that. And at the end, you can see where I have it styled in my booth. So here is my little sewing machine cabinet. I filled some holes where it had a back, and I just used that Durham rock hard, the water putty. Here, I didn't take a before picture, but here's the style. Now, of course, had mine been in that good a shape, I wouldn't be here doing this. You can see from the color of the stain on top, it was very faded, and the veneer was peeling. And even though this is the underneath side that'll be down in the desk, I wanted to go ahead and get that fixed. So I'm using Starbond super glue with the long, skinny tip on it, and put that glue down in there, and then I used clothespins just to kind of clamp it real well. And while that is there, speaking of veneer, I don't know if this got wet. I don't know why this is so rough, but I'm going to take out that little shelf looking thing where the sewing machine went down and rested on that, and then I'm going to start getting the veneer off. And I had that little chisel that I used, so I just went ahead and stuck with that. It might have been a little bit easier if I'd had an actual wider scraper, but with the help of a heat gun, it really came off easily. It heats up that old glue, and it just came right off. I was very happy with how clean that all was. Once I had that off, I went ahead and started, I just was sanding kind of where some of that super glue got on the edges, and I'm just cleaning that up. And then I'm going to give the whole piece a scuff sand. And some of the finish was so old and crackly that it actually, got all the way down to wood in some places, which is okay. But I just wanted to give the whole piece a good sand to make sure that my paint had something really to stick to and it wasn't slick. It's not as bad as it looks. Most of that is dust. It looks like I'm really taking off the finish, but that's just kind of dust from where I'm just giving it a scuff sand. And I just hand sanded down around the legs. I didn't want to use my Orbital Sander for fear that it was going to actually change the shape, nick those legs. Anyway, I'm using chalk paint. The color is Carbon. And this paint has been out in the shop all winter long, and so it's kind of changed its consistency and is a little gel-like. So I am using, I'm just spraying the piece with water and then putting that on, and that's the great thing about chalk paint is when you water it down, it just glides right on. Who would even know that it was kind of all one piece in there? And I'm going to just slap the paint on everywhere, and then I will go through and take long swipes to smooth it out. Not that I'm trying to hide that this is a hand-painted piece, because I want it to look like that paint is original, like it was painted black forever ago. So I'm going to do the same thing inside. I'm just showing you how awesome the veneer came off and how good it looks. And then cleaning off all that sanding dust. But again, using the water and then painting it, it goes on very easily, very smooth. Even with just the one coat, it covered really well. And you'll notice I have it upside down. I like to do the first coat upside down, just making sure I get in all those little places. And then once I flip it up, you'll be able to see kind of where I have a little work to do. I am actually doing the second coat here on the top. Again, doing the same thing, adding water. I went a little overboard here, nothing like completely saturating the piece. I didn't mean to put that much water on it. But I'm just going to smear that paint on there, and it gives it a great coverage. I am going to distress it, so I'm not worried about it being too perfect. But you can see here, this is just one coat on the base, and then now we are two coats, and it does still have a little bit of wet spots that look kind of dark. But now the second coat was perfect. It really only took two coats to get the coverage that I wanted. I hand sanded just to kind of, again, to distress it a little bit, but I didn't want to do anything and put any nicks in it, so I hand sanded after I painted. And now I'm just I put the top upside down, picked up the little table, the little desk, side table, whatever, and I'm using the original brackets that would have held on the piece that had the sewing machine hole in it. And I used drywall screws because that's kind of my go-to, and hooked that top on. And now I'm using Varathane natural wax, because when you use a chalk paint, you want to make sure to seal it with something, and you can use a liquid top coat, or in this case a wax. But look how beautiful that is. I will buff it, and at the end of this video show it styled up so you can see the finished product. Alright, so we got our bookshelf wrapped up. We did a little cleaning in the garage so that we could paint, and we fixed and painted our little sewing machine cabinet that we're turning into a desk. So this is the third piece that I really wanted to try to get a hold of today. So I picked this up at the auction. I got this and a bunch of spindles for a banister. So the other person that was bidding against me, we found out that actually he wanted those, whereas I wanted this. So we made a deal, and at the end of the day, between the other things that were in there and this, I came out with this for free. So here I go. It is wobbly. I gotta figure out what it's gonna take to fix it. I think it just might need some things tightened up, but we're gonna take it in the shop, flip it upside down, and take a look at it. So what you're seeing here is half of a tabletop. When I flipped it upside down and I took the base off of it to see about the legs, one of the legs fell off and the tabletop split in half. But I decided to go ahead and do some work on it and get it sanded and take it apart, and you'll have to stay tuned for part 2. All right, so what's happened is when I took the little table apart, I fell in love with the antique construction, the way the arms came out of the skirt to hold the drop leaf sides, and just the simplicity but yet sweet and dainty table. And so I decided that rather than just slapping a coat of paint on it and putting it in my booth and putting a tablecloth on it just to use to hold things, that I would actually go ahead and completely give it a new life. Now, that being said, I am still using it, still putting it in my booth, but I will actually consider selling it once it is fixed, but I just felt like it wasn't doing it justice. So stay tuned for part 2, and we will finish up that table, and you can see what it looks like when it's finished. But until then, here is the shots of the completed bookshelf and the little sewing table that I keep calling a desk, but it's just a little side table. And I will be putting a slide underneath there so that when you open the door, it has a basket that slides out. But unfortunately, I ordered the slides and they haven't come yet, and I wanted to go ahead and get this video out there. So I will post, if you follow me, I will post pictures in community and on Instagram and Facebook of the actual finished project with the slides. And again, it's just a little sewing table turned side table, or you could still use it as a desk. There's just nowhere to put your legs. But anyway, thanks for sticking around. And if you don't already subscribe, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and then click the notification bell so that you'll get notified every time I upload a new video. So thanks so much. I gotta love.